This is Jonathan Agger, fifth Pro Boxing Fans, joined by Ariel Helwani here in Dublin for Chantelle Cameron. Ariel, you weren't missing this one, were you?
Oh my gosh, no, this is so great. I always said that I wanted to be in Dublin whenever Katie fought here professionally. They asked me to work the Jake Paul-Nate Diaz fight. I said, yeah, cool, I'll be there, but I need to be in Dublin on May 20th. Here I am. I'm so happy to be here.
Eddie Hearn, some might say it's his job to build the show, but he believes that this is going to be an all-time classic. It's hard to disagree. Is that what you say?
I thought you were going to say Eddie Hearn's job is to promote the event, and I'm doing a better job of promoting this than him. That being said, I do agree. Because of the history, because of the significance, and also because she could have fought anyone. She could have fought any opponent, and instead she's fighting the undisputed champion at 140 pounds. No one does that. Who does that in boxing? Especially in a moment like this where everyone would have been okay with any type of opponent. So yeah, I think it's going to be great. 10 2-minute rounds, all action. Can't wait.
I want to take you back to Taylor Serrano last year, because the extra dynamic was Eddie Hearn against Jake Paul kind of thing. Obviously Jake's not involved in this event, of course, but how did you find that sort of tension between those two? Because it was a bit tense all week.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved the dynamic. I loved the shot of them sitting next to each other and cheering for their fighter. We're not going to see that this time because Eddie promotes both. I asked him about that yesterday, and it's a little tough, right? Because you can't show your emotion. It's more UFC in that regard, where they just promote everyone and they can't show favorites. So that's what made it very unique. I think it's cool. Like, everyone knows if it's promoter versus promoter that you want your fighter to win. So no need to hide around that. And I hope we get to see the rematch. Hopefully, if all goes well on Saturday for Katie, that's the next fight.
Sticking with Eddie, obviously as someone on the other side of the pond, involved in both sports, how do you feel he's received in America for what he's doing compared to the other promoters?
Well, I guess it depends on who you ask. If you ask the other promoters, maybe they're not too happy with him. I think the fans love him. I'll tell you, anytime he's on my show, people love him. And they always say, like, oh, I'm not a big boxing fan, or I don't know much about Matchroom or what they're doing, but I love your conversations. What a captivating guy. What an interesting character. So I think he's the best promoter in combat sports. That has nothing to do with me being here. I've been saying that for a long time. He stands around and talks to everyone every day, multiple times a week. He promotes. He knows the whole card. He knows who's on the card. He knows who's their, opponent and their history and their resumes. It's really impressive. He reminds me of Dana like 15 years ago. And so to see, I was asking Mr. like, are you afraid of burning out? And he's like, no, I'm good. We'll see what happens, in a few years' time. But it's impressive to see him work and how much he cares.
Just on the UFC for a minute, I'm not that clued up on. I'd probably say I'm casual, if that. But it seems to me that you guys, or UFC, gets the big fights. That just happens. There's no purse split disagreements, fighters pulling out. Why is it that, and does that happen? And if it doesn't, why aren't there disagreements about stuff like that? Well,
they have a bit of a stranglehold on the sport, and so the whole structure is different. It's more like pro wrestling than MMA, in that, if you're a UFC fighter, you're exclusive to them, and they can do certain things to get you to take fights. They can remove you from the rankings. They can, they can extend your contract if you turn down a fight. So all kinds of things. And ultimately, everyone wants to be a champion, and everyone wants to fight the best in MMA, because what else are they going to do? And that's kind of what's expected. Things like tune-up fights, gimme fights don't really exist in the UFC. And that's been part of their success, right? That's why people love it. Here in boxing, the fighters have a lot more freedom, and that leads to things like that, which I kind of like. I think it's fun to cover that stuff, but you don't see any of that in MMA.
Conor McGregor's in town this week. Carl Froch was asked about a fight between them two because of their back and forth, and he reckons he knocks McGregor out. What do you think of if that was to happen?
I don't think there's any interest in seeing that. I mean, of course, people would watch it. I mean, it's Conor, but I want to see Conor fight in MMA. I want to see him fight Michael Chandler. I want to see him fight the other MMA guys. That, to me, is more interesting. He did it against Floyd. It was a great spectacle, but, who knows how many fights he has left. I would personally like those fights to be in mixed martial arts.
And then just on a personal aspect of what you do, obviously you've started off sort of reporting on the UFC as like guys like me, and then you've built yourself up for the channel you've got. What advice would you give to people out there that want to do a similar role to you?
One thing that always stayed in my mind was 80% of success is just showing up. Just show up. Say yes to everything. be omnipresent, be the guy, be professional, be gracious, be courteous, be thankful, be grateful. And if you do those things to the people that you interview, they'll come back again and again and want to talk to you. If you're professional, if you're grateful for their time, if you keep their trust, if you don't break the trust, if you don't report on things that they say are off the record and then break that trust, like all those things go a very long way. And so I just try to be everywhere. I try to talk to everyone, be in good standing with everyone as much as possible, and honestly just try to outwork everyone. Like, when I went on the trips, I didn't stay out late drinking. I didn't go to party and stuff like that. Like, it was a business trip for me. I was there on a mission. I was there to beat everyone, to get the exclusives, and then I was ready to go home, and that was it.
And obviously, you've got to have thick skin. I think that's fair to say. You've had your run-ins over the years. Yeah. What is, for fans who are wondering right now, what's your relationship with Dana and, of course, Paddy Pimblett? Because that was a big talking point last year.
Listen, I've been doing this now professionally since 2006. It's 2013. You could probably count my detractors on one hand, but it's always very publicized when that happens. So I would say my relationship with them is non-existent, and I'm okay with that. I don't have to be best friends with everyone. I just have to be able to sleep at night knowing that I didn't do anything wrong, and I don't believe in those particular cases I did anything wrong. And if I did, I call them up and I try to figure it out. Just like I reached out to both of them when things went sideways to try to, figure it out. So eventually we'll all be friends again. I have no doubt about that. And if not, it's all good.
Obviously, Ariel, Jake Paul, Nate Diaz. What can boxing fans expect from this fight?
I think it'll be a fun spectacle, a fun show. I think, I'll probably go the distance, 8 rounds. But Diaz is a megastar, so anytime he competes, this is just, to me, it's as much about Diaz than it is Jake Paul. And I'm really curious to see if he wins, where he goes from there, because he's been talking about boxing for a long time.
Ariel Helwani, thanks for your time. Enjoy the rest of your time here in Dublin.
Thank you.